Welcome, dear learners. This lecture on ethnography and introduction has been developed based on the sociological anthropology point of view. It has been classified into 8 elements to be discussed. They are introduction, method of assessment, scholars who involved in ethnography studies, unique features of ethnography and ethnology, the content of ethnography, perspectives in ethnography, ethic and emic ethnography, ethnography as methodological changes in social sciences, ethical stance in ethnography and so on. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, sociologists use the term organization very broadly to refer to any system that governs social life and behavior. The word is more specifically used to refer to formal, bureaucratic institutions. Like schools and police stations, some formal organization handle clients with their prime aim being the administration of people and their needs. There are others who are involved in the management of work, such as factories, where the task itself serves as the main objective. People who work for formal organization in the first scenario still pursue it as work, but this professional entails managing others in semi-environments. However, this lecture will concentrate on ethnography works and scholars who are associated with the work. Ethnography research has significantly contributed to research on organizations in both the loose and strict senses. Ethnography is a style of research rather than a particular methodology and employs a number of data collection methods. Let us now look about the topic. Ethnography is the study of specific nuances as opposed to general principles. Another school of sociology, known as theoretical sociology, focuses more on the nuances of a culture. This study of local culture or local intricacies is known as ethnography. It is another branch of sociology works with universal rules, because ethnographers conduct fieldwork and leave their regular office. Some people mistakenly associate ethnography with the fieldwork, while overseeing, monitoring and analyzing large scale services from the office and writing first rate reports from there. One can construct mathematical and analytical model simulation models while seated in office. However, ethnography entails leaving the office and traveling into the field to study people. It also refers to process of personally observing a group's or community's behavior. One cannot designate research assistants to do this. Instead, ethnographers prefer to study the communities in concern. The term ethnography, field methods, qualitative analysis, participation observation, case study, realistic method and responsive evaluation are frequently interchangeable. Ethnography also includes the production of written description of what is observed. Therefore, there is more than one type of ethnography. Individuals who are known as ethnographers employ a wide range of methods in their research, but in every case it entails separating oneself from the population. The method and analysis in ethnography. Incorporation of method and methodology that defines ethnography has proved problematic. While critics of naturalism as a theory of knowledge mostly rejected ethnography out of hand, ethnography was promoted within naturalism as the primary method and its flaws neglected in exaggerated promises for its performance. Criticism of ethnography have resulted from this. The natural sciences critic criticizes ethnography for not upholding the natural scientific principles as they are applied to social life. It violates some values related to the function of the researcher. The natural science research approach, for instance, prohibits the researcher from becoming an element in the experiment. But ethnographers are not completely detached from the study, rather they are a part of it or through their intrusive presence have an impact on it. Introspection, referred as auto-observation, is a component of ethnography if participant observation is used to collect data. In auto-observation, the researcher's own experiences and attitude changes while working with the field, participants are recorded as part of the data. Another principle in ethnography is related to data gathering techniques. Techniques such as unstructured, flexible and open-ended methods might have the impression of involving spontaneous data collection. The lack of structure restricts an evaluation of the data, since variations that arise can be attributed to changes in how data were gathered. The goal of the natural sciences highly organized methodologies is to eliminate unnecessary variation in order to find genuine differences in the data. Because of this, social science research techniques based on natural science models are created to minimize the impact of researcher and the instrument used to gather the data. Moreover, ethnography breaks fundamental beliefs about the nature of data. The goal of the scientific paradigm of social research is to quantify and describe social processes through quantitative research. Ethnography deals with quality and meaning and also describes and measures, but it does so using passages from human speech. As Day points out, meaning might appear ambiguous, unreliable, elusive and ethereal. This idea has been taken from Day's work on qualitative analysis. The next subsegment is scholars who are engaged in ethnographic research. While talking about ethnography, it is indeed that the fellowship who are associated in this subject. Franz Boas from the United States, who worked at Clark University and studied the Northwest Pacific coast, Alaska and Siberia, can be considered one of the founding fathers of ethnography. Bronislaw Malinowski, who taught at London School of Economics and done research on Trobriand Islands of New Guinea in the Southwest Pacific, is recognized for ethnography studies. Others like Evans Pritchard, a graduate of London School of Economics, who studied with craft oracle magic among the Azande in Sudan, as renowned for his methodological contributions to ethnography, continued using the ethnography approach, were influenced by founding fathers and made significant contributions to ethnography research. L. H. Morgan, an anthropologist and politician from New York, studied consanguinity or unions of kinship. It is a very interesting one. In addition to social evolution and ethnography of North American tribes, he was so well known and his work was so outstanding that even legendary individuals like Karl Marx, Charles Darwin and Freud. Another personality is William Foote White, a sociologist from Chicago, who wrote the well-known book Street Corner Society and who studied the social structure of the Boston neighborhood gang in American township called Connersville. The leader of the Northern gang, Doug, was his most important source. White embraced the position of social workers, friend of friends. The next important scholar, Robert Redfield, a graduate of Washington University who studied Latin American peasants, as well as his wife Milton B. Singer, the author of the well-known book When a Great Tradition Modernizes, were both involved in this research. This book about India is on her work in the country, which is renowned for its ideas of great tradition and little tradition. Thus, Robert Redfield and Milton Singer created the words great tradition and little tradition to describe how India's folk traditions and various forms of Hinduism intersect. Some of you have read works on poverty or are familiar with the name Oscar Lewis. In 1959, his work of 5 families Mexican case studies in the culture of poverty was written. He was a graduate of Washington University and claimed that the culture of poverty is prevalent only in areas of early capitalism where poverty is the dominant paradigm. And this poverty is characterized by a lack of participation on the part of the populations. The poor are less likely to attend religious institutions or businesses, and even their family structures are more disorganized, with women entering in place of men who entered in a different way from the ministry. Then Claude Lévi-Strauss, a French anthropologist, was a well-known personality, applied an ethnographic perspectives and studied preferential marriages. These ethnographers had a range of perspectives. Some were anthropologists, most of them sociologists or anthropologists. Some had political backgrounds. Sociologists who work on case studies and community studies may also be psychologists, operations researchers or program researchers. Significant contribution to the development of ethnography. Malinowski had studied economics and international trade at London School of Economics. One can see that individuals from a range of cultures, including those in politics, economics, sociology, anthropology, physics, geography and economics, have used the ethnography method. It should be noted that an ethnographer involves the roles of pilgrim who spends more than a year traveling through a culture and an expert on that culture. Previously, it was believed that an ethnographic study needed to be completed within a time frame of at least 1 or 2 years. However, contemporary ethnographers do not adhere the rule that an ethnographer must conduct fieldwork for at least a year or 2 before publishing their findings. Instead, they conduct study for 1 week, 2 weeks, even 15 days, 1 month or 2 months. So, the second role is that of a cartographer, which encompasses that after gathering data more from the field, and you must analyze that data, make interpretations. Writing about the natives in a way that illustrates their way of life would fall under this category. However, we must discuss their cultures, practices and beliefs in a manner that does not jeopardize their reputation because of ethical concerns, which we will be discussing at a later stage in this session. What kind of features are found in ethnography and ethnology? There are some terms which look very similar to ethnography, that is ethnology. It is the same thing as ethnography, more or less. The answer is yes. Ethnology may be defined as historical and comparative analysis of cultures based on ethnography accounts, the latter being produced by travelers and missionaries. So, ethnography accounts were produced more by travelers, missionaries, administrators and on the basis of their records. One makes a comparative study of 2 or more cultures, then it becomes ethnology. There is very close connection, or one can even say that ethnology is the same thing as ethnography. For Speyer, ethnology is the descriptive branch of ethnology, and ethnography may be seen as both a method. As a method, it implies fieldwork, case studies, observations and is a product. Product means the outcome of the research, the report, final report, that is also called ethnography. Ethnography may be seen as both a method of inquiry in sociology and as finished product or the final research report or the book or working papers, means communication based on your ethnographic research. Is it the same thing as ethnomethodology? Then the answer is no. Ethnomethodology is, some of you may remember, we discussed ethnomethodology and referred to Garfunkel's experiments. Ethnomethodology is the study of methods. Ethno means culture of people or people, folk and methodologies. The next thing is very important, and the content. What kind of content are studying ethnography? In order to study small localized cultures, British anthropologists traveled to Asia, Africa and Latin America. However, later on some ethnographers also studied their own cultures. Indian ethnographers who had received training in the ethnographic method, term coined in the West, US and UK, also decided to study their own culture. The majority of the cultures studied by Indian ethnographers are their own. The Indian tribal communities were studied by ethnographers who also looked at their outsiders. Indian ethnographers have traditionally studied the tribal communities, although ethnographers from the US, UK and France have also studied tribal communities both abroad and within their own countries. Today's ethnographers not only study present societies, but also groups of particular interest such as disaster affected areas, the sexual meaning of factory workers, commercial weight loss groups, software workers, doctors and surgeons in hospitals, high risk groups, etc. We will discuss that problem that when studying people at the grassroots level, there are some ethical and moral dilemmas and we must be causes of them. They also study social movements by joining social movements, and in this process they confront a lot of ethical and moral dilemmas. Perspectives in ethnography. In that aspect, ethnographers who study sociological cases, culture and fields are influenced by a variety of perspectives as with researchers in any other field of the social sciences. Accordingly, one get naturalistic ethnographers who think they are conducting an unbiased study of culture. There are critical and Marxist ethnographers who concentrate on the conflicts within cultures based on class relations and who believe that the main conflicts in society and culture are along the line of relations of production. There are sociological theories that place more emphasis on discourses because they are interested in the situational or discursive process that produce and preserve the cultures. Instead of studying ethnography on people, they claim that ethnography is conducted with people. Realistic research or naturalistic ethnography will come to an end with ethnography of people, whereas discursive ethnography will include ethnography of people. A few individuals who hold a post-structural and feminist perspective have also used ethnographic techniques, and their ethnographies will be influenced by their post-structural and feminist system. Then there are postmodern ethnographies. Ethnography is a method, not a specific school of thought. Social scientists with a variety of perspectives on their research have used ethnography, including feminist, Marxist, constructionist, naturalist and Marxist social scientist as well as postmodern social scientist. According to M. Srinivas, one of the pioneers of ethnography in India, there are two esoteric parts ethnography, an exterior aspect and interior aspect. Censuses and surveys fall under the esoteric aspect. Thus, ethnographers can carry out census and surveys to gather genealogical data. They can also utilize questionnaire approach and document events as they take place, which is the main focus of ethnography or field of study. Rituals associated with the life cycle, seasonal celebrations, agricultural and other operations, arguments, divisions, transactions, jokes, abuse, folklore, etc. And in the secret, internal academic or esoteric anthropologists have lived among the natives for a long time, according to M. Srinivas. His familiarity with the regional language is essential in understanding the perspectives of natives because one cannot understand them without being familiar in their dialect. Participation in everyday activities, dependence on locals for basic necessities of life like company, lodging and company making sense of observations, discourses and interactions and frequently producing a change in his outlook and attitudes are all aspects of ethnography work that frequently produce change in attitude and outlook toward the people and the world. The next very important thing, the subject matter of ethnography is ethic and emic approach in ethnography. Emic and ethic perspectives, when anthropologists, sociologists conduct field work, they gather data, and anthropological data important tool for gathering is ethnography, the in-depth study of everyday practices and lives of a people. Ethnography produces a detailed description of the studied group at a particular time and location, also known as a thick description, a term coined by anthropologist Clifford Keats in his 1973 book The Interpretation of Cultures to describe this type of research and writing. A thick description explains not only the behavior or cultural event in question, but also the context in which it occurs and anthropological interpretations of it. Such descriptions helps readers better understand the internal logic of why people in a culture behave as they do and why the behaviors are meaningful to them. This is important because understanding the attitudes, perspectives and motivations of cultural insiders is at the heart of anthropology and as well as then the sociology. Ethnographers gather data from many different sources. One source is the anthropologist's own observations and thoughts. Ethnographers keep field notes and document their ideas and reflections as well as what they do and observe when participating in activities with the people they are studying, a research technique known as participant observation. Other sources of data include informal conversation and more formal interviews that are recorded and transcribed. They also collect photographs, artifacts, public records, books and reports. Different types of data produce different kinds of ethnographic descriptions, which also vary in terms of perspective from the perspective of the studied culture, which means emic, or from the perspective of the observer, which means etic. Emic perspectives refers to descriptions of behaviors and beliefs in terms that are meaningful to people who belong to a specific culture. Example, how people perceive and categorize their culture and experiences, why people believe they do what they do, how they imagine and explain things. To uncover emic perspectives, ethnographers talk to people, observe what they do and participate in their daily activities with them. Emic perspectives are essential for anthropologists and sociologists' efforts to obtain a detailed understanding of a culture and to avoid interpreting others through their own cultural beliefs. Etic perspectives refers to explanation for behavior made by an outsider in ways that are meaningful to the observer. For an sociologist and the anthropologist, etic descriptions typically arise from conversations between the ethnographer and the anthropological community. These explanations tend to be based in science and are informed by historical, political and economic studies and other types of research. The etic approach acknowledges that number of culture are unlikely to view the things they do as noteworthy or unusual. They cannot be easily stand back and view their own behavior objectively or from another perspective. For example, one may not have never thought twice about and the way you brush your teeth and the practice of going to the dentist or how you experienced the teenage years. For you, these parts of your culture are so normal and natural, you probably would never consider questioning them. An emic gives as an alternative perspectives that is essential when constructing a comprehensive view of a people. The ethical stance. Ethical standards mean a number of things. Basically, it means no harm policy, that your research should not harm your respondents, your subjects in any way, maintaining confidentiality of raw data and the personal information given by people. When you write reports about them and you have to write their names and you must use pseudonym. Use of pseudonym for narratives, real informants should not be identified. Ethical practices have to be followed in analysis and reporting of findings. As a researcher, you have tremendous responsibility of work for the society, like with resources provided to you by society, and you must therefore act in a responsible manner and acknowledge support, financial, intellectual received from different sources. Dear learners, so far we have dealt with ethnography as an overview. To look into deeper, we have seen general outline of ethnography, method of assessment and the scholars who involved in ethnographic studies, unique features in ethnography and ethnology, the another concept, the content of ethnography, perspectives in ethnography, ethic and emic approach in ethnography, then the ethical stance in ethnography. I hope you all must enjoyed the session and it may have enriched the knowledge on ethnography. Dear learners, we will meet in another schedule. Thank you. All the best.